Hello and welcome to another episode of Analog Insights. In today's episode, my friend Greg and I will review the Hasselblad 903 SWC, which is known for its exceptional lens, the 38mm f4.5 Biogon. For such a 6x6 medium format camera, the 38mm focal length is roughly equivalent to a 21mm focal length on a 35mm camera. And kind of fittingly, the SW in the name also stands for super wide. We took the camera out on a photo walk around Würzburg, shooting both some architecture but also a little portrait session. And for black and white film, we used Kodak T-Max 400, which Greg then developed in a half-stand technique in Rodinal diluted at 1:100 for 22 minutes and only 3 agitations in total. For color film, we used some Kodak Ektar 100 and Kodak Portra 160 for the portrait session, which I just sent out to my lab for processing and scanning. So let's take a closer look at the results and, of course, the camera with all its features and details. The Hasselblad 903 SWC is all about the built-in Biogon lens. It is a camera based on the Hasselblad V system, but the focus really lies on that lens that has a built-in leaf shutter, and because of that has not only the aperture but also the shutter speed control on the lens, as is common for the Hasselblad V system. Then there is a rather short body, which basically ensures the correct distance between the film plane and the lens, with a film winder on the right side, a shutter release button on top, and also a little bubble level and an interchangeable viewfinder also on top. Finally, at the back of the camera, there's an interchangeable film magazine, which lets you easily switch between black and white and color film if you want that. And that's it. There's no built-in light meter, no rangefinder or any additional features on this camera. So it's a purely mechanical, single-purpose tool, basically, that is all about medium format, wide-angle photography. And as this camera is all about the lens, let's take a closer look at the Biogon and its construction. The lens design was patented in 1951 by Dr. Ludwig Bertele, who is really the father of these kinds of card-size Biogon wide-angle lenses. And what is interesting here is that the lens design with its 8 elements and 5 groups is nearly symmetrical, which is ideal for such wide-angle lenses. The problem is that the distance between the rear element of the lens and the film plane is too short to fit in everything you would need for a reflex camera in terms of a mirror and all that. And because of that, it's not easy to simply adapt that lens to the traditional Hasselblad V system. And nevertheless, Hasselblad in 1954 already managed to release a camera with this outstanding lens to the market, and that was the Hasselblad SW, standing for super wide. And after a shutter modification only a few years later, it was called the SWC. The next important modification, because I don't want to touch on every iteration of the camera, came in the early 1980s with the SWC-M, which had an improved winding lever and a new viewfinder, allowing the shutter to cock the shutter also with an attached Polaroid film mount. The most important and most significant improvements came with the 903 SWC, which we have here. This camera had the new lens design with a 60mm filter mount and a new shutter, and also a new viewfinder, giving it a direct view on the water bubble. The last version of the camera was the 905 SWC, which was produced by Hasselblad between 2001 and 2009. And this camera comes with a slightly poorer lens design, plastic filter mount, and is more expensive, significantly more expensive on the used market than the earlier, better versions. So I would personally recommend not to go for this version. All the SWC cameras are fully integrated into the Hasselblad V system, which also means that you can use the viewfinders with a special matte screen on this camera in order to get your composition right. So this feels more like using a large format camera then, and we did that for a couple of shots, as you can see here. And it also shows that the system is kind of fully integrated. So if you already have a Hasselblad V system, this camera might be a very interesting addition to it. The optical performance of this lens is outstanding. The diagonal view angle of the Biogon is 91 degree, and the distortion on the frame rims is just 0.3%, which you can see a little bit when you look here at our close-up portraits. And of course this makes this small degree of distortion makes this lens ideal for certain photographic tasks or a wide range of photographic tasks, specifically shooting architecture, for instance. As is common for the Hasselblad V system, and as I briefly mentioned before, both the aperture and the shutter speed can be set on the lens itself. So the range of shutter speeds is between 1 second and 1/500th of a second, plus a bulb mode. And with respect to the aperture, the widest aperture is f4.5 and the smallest is f22. And interestingly, the camera is supposed to be shot wide open at f4.5 and basically be used for available light photography. And there's hardly any more vignetting when you shoot it like that than when you stop it down. As the camera only features a viewfinder, no matte screen or rangefinder, it is recommended to either guess or, as it turned out quickly for me personally, to use an external rangefinder to basically measure your distance to the subject, then set it based on what is written on the lens, and only afterwards do your composition and take the final shot. And that was an interesting learning experience for me, because of course I first guessed the distance, then looked it up with the external rangefinder, and I was usually quite surprised to see that there was quite a difference between my educated guess, or I thought educated guess, and what the actual distance was. Just as a historical side note, the lens design offered so many benefits that it was also used for specified cameras for NASA's Apollo program. Most famously for a version of it with respect to the focal length, a 60mm Biogon on a motorized camera with a 70-frame magazine. So quite interesting that this incredible lens design also was used for NASA's Apollo program. So what are our personal impressions? Greg is using this camera for 25 years and would never give it away, he told me. According to him, the handling is very intuitive and easy as long as you don't forget to remove the lens cap. And the results are really outstanding. For me, using the camera took hardly any getting used to because I was already familiar with the Hasselblad V system. The build quality of the camera is fantastic. The sounds of the shutter and the winder is just beautiful. And I personally also like the compact size of it. I particularly like that the shutter release button is on top of the camera, and the interchangeable magazines let you easily switch between black and white and color film. The only downside, you might wonder, it's price. It's one of these cameras again. The camera is priced like a Hasselblad and sought after due to its incredible, outstanding lens. And as of late 2019, that means that prices start at around 1,600 euros and end around 3,300 euros, depending on the version and condition of the camera. Personally, I would, if you want to avoid any kind of trouble, I would recommend you go for the 903 SWC that we also have here, and not the younger, later version, the 905, because of its poorer lens design and plastic filter mount and all that. So if you can do with an earlier version, there are also some recommended online. You can take a closer look, but I personally would recommend the 903 here. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Analog Insights and our review of the Hasselblad 903 SWC, a purely mechanical super wide-angle medium format camera. If you did, please remember to like this video and maybe even share it with your friends. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel. Jules, Greg and I really appreciate each and every subscriber coming our way. So thanks for watching. I hope to see you soon. Bye.